The story begins with a boy named Angus. His mother sends him to the sea to swim, but instead he chooses to sit quietly by the shore. While there, he notices something unusual, a large egg partly buried near the water. Curious, he pulls it out and studies it, just as his mother arrives and calls him home. Quickly, he hides the egg in his bucket and follows her back. His mother, Annie, is disappointed that Angus didn't even try to swim, but he says nothing in return. Once they arrive home, he slips away to his father's workshop. Later, his sister Christy returns and tells Annie that Angus did nothing at the beach except sit alone as usual. Meanwhile, Angus places his belongings in the workshop that once belonged to his father, Charlie, who is away at war. He looks at his father's photo and the calendar, quietly hoping for his return. Then he washes the egg, removes its outer layer, and is stunned to discover a glowing blue interior. Before he can observe it further, Annie calls him again, forcing him to leave it behind. That night, heavy rain begins, and Angus worries about the egg being left alone in the workshop. Unable to sleep, he rushes out into the storm. When he arrives, the egg has cracked open. Inside, he finds a strange creature. As he reaches out, it snaps at him, but he quickly realizes it is just hungry. He runs to get food and feeds it, calming the creature. Angus grows fond of it and quietly names it Crusoe. Before long, Annie calls again, and he reluctantly goes to bed. The next morning, soldiers arrive at their home. Captain Hamilton explains that enemy forces may attack by sea, so his men will stay and defend the coast. They set up their base inside the house, while Annie tells the children to stay out of the way. Curious, Angus later goes to the library to learn more about the creature. When he returns to the workshop, he finds chaos. Crusoe is now chewing on his father's boots. Realizing the creature is still hungry, he tries to get food from the kitchen, but the army cook, Sergeant Strunk, stops him. Desperate, Angus offers to take out the garbage in exchange. Using scraps from the bin, he feeds Crusoe, who happily eats everything. He then fills a container with water so the creature can swim. From that moment, Angus and Crusoe form a bond. As days pass, a man named Louis arrives and begins working in the workshop. Annie assigns him cleaning duties. While working, Louis unknowingly removes the bin where Crusoe was hidden. Angus later discovers the creature is missing and panics. At the same time, Crusoe manages to sneak into the house. Sergeant Strunk's dog, Churchill, spots it and gives chase, but cannot catch it. Crusoe hides in the bathroom, where Christy finds it and is frightened, though Angus quickly explains everything. She agrees to keep the secret. Later, Louis is asked to repair a leak in the bathroom. When he discovers Crusoe, he is shocked, but listens as Angus explains the situation. Louis recognizes the creature as a rare seahorse, believed to be the only one of its kind in existence. According to legend, when one dies, another is born from a mysterious egg. As tensions rise, Annie nearly discovers Crusoe, but Louis helps distract her and keep the secret safe. That night, Louis suggests returning Crusoe to the sea, but Angus refuses, believing the creature belongs with him. During a military dinner at the house, Crusoe escapes again and causes chaos, chasing the soldier's dog and disrupting the entire event. Afterward, Crusoe finds its way into a fountain, where it feeds freely. Eventually, Angus realizes Crusoe is growing too large to remain hidden. With heavy hearts, he and Louis take the creature to the shore and release it back into the ocean. Sometime later, fishermen at sea encounter a massive version of Crusoe, now fully grown. Shocked, they witness its incredible strength as it drags their boat before disappearing into the deep. Back on land, Angus is told to begin army training. Although he tries to adjust, he soon becomes restless and returns to the sea, calling out for Crusoe. To his amazement, Crusoe reappears, now enormous. The creature lifts him onto its back, and together they ride across the ocean in a thrilling journey before returning him safely to shore. That night, Angus excitedly shares his adventure with Christy and Louis, filling the house with joy. From a distance, Annie watches them smiling and quietly leaves. Louis follows her, and Annie thanks him sincerely. She admits that because of him, she has finally seen her children happy again. Louis simply smiles and walks away. Meanwhile, Jimmy spoke with a reporter named Jock about the mysterious creature he had encountered out at sea. Jock immediately believed the story could bring tourists and investors to the town. Huey disagreed, insisting their peaceful town didn't need attention, but Jock argued that everyone deserved to know about a dangerous creature lurking nearby. The following day, Hamilton took Annie and her children up a nearby hill to show them his army's preparations and demonstrate the weapons they used against enemies. He ordered the soldiers to carry out practice attacks on targets hidden in the water. Angus quickly realized the exercise could put Crusoe in danger and desperately begged Annie to stop it. Annie didn't understand why he was panicking and told him to calm down. Even when Christie insisted Angus was telling the truth, no one listened. Soon the soldiers began firing blanks into the shallow waters. Frightened by the explosions, Crusoe disappeared beneath the waves. Meanwhile, Jimmy and Jock waited near the shore, hoping to capture a photograph of the creature, but Crusoe never appeared. Frustrated, they created a fake model of the monster, photographed it, and published the image in the newspaper the next morning. A few days later, Sergeant Strunk saw the photo and instantly recognized the terrifying creature he had once spotted near the coast. Determined to destroy it, he and several soldiers organized a hunt for Crusoe. That night, Christie secretly entered Angus's room, and together they sneaked away from home. With Lewis guiding them, they made their way to the beach to search for Crusoe. Angus called out into the darkness, and after a tense silence, Crusoe finally surfaced. But something was different. He seemed wild and aggressive. Without warning, the creature charged past Angus and Lewis before vanishing back into the sea. Angus blamed Lewis, believing their decision to release Crusoe had created a dangerous situation. At the same time, Strunk and his soldiers searched the waters by boat, determined to kill the creature. As they approached the shore, Churchill's frantic barking caught their attention. Strunk ordered the boat toward the sound, but within seconds, Crusoe burst from the water and killed Churchill before disappearing once again into the darkness. Confused and frightened, the soldiers fired wildly into the sea. Suddenly, Crusoe slammed into their boat, throwing everyone overboard. Hearing the gunshots in the distance, Hamilton assumed enemy forces had attacked. He immediately ordered his men to return fire and instructed Annie to stay hidden in the house with the children. Annie quickly found Christie and asked where Angus was. When Christie admitted he wasn't home, Annie panicked. Refusing to leave Angus alone during the chaos, she followed Hamilton toward the shoreline despite his attempts to stop her. Out on the water, Crusoe had become completely uncontrollable. He seized Sergeant Strunk in his jaws and tossed him around violently. Angus arrived just in time and shouted at Crusoe, but the creature ignored him. Desperate, Angus ran into the shallow water to reach his friend, but he slipped and began drowning. The moment Crusoe noticed Angus struggling, he released Strunk and rushed back to save him, carrying the boy safely to shore. Louis joined them, and together they desperately tried to revive Angus. After several terrifying moments, Angus finally gasped for air and opened his eyes. Relieved and overjoyed, he looked up to see Crusoe standing nearby. Meanwhile, Hamilton discovered there were no enemy boats nearby, yet he still ordered his men to continue firing into the sea. As he approached the shore, Crusoe slipped beneath the waves again. Annie rushed to Angus and hugged him tightly, thankful he was alive. Angus tried to explain everything about Crusoe, but Annie dismissed it as another childish fantasy. Then suddenly, Crusoe rose from the ocean before everyone's eyes. Annie froze in shock as she realized Angus had been telling the truth all along. Even Hamilton stood speechless at the sight of the enormous sea creature. The soldiers once again opened fire toward the water. Angus climbed onto Crusoe's massive back, trying to guide him to safety. Terrified, Annie begged Hamilton to stop the attack, but communication with the soldiers had already failed. Hamilton, Lewis, and Annie jumped into a small boat and chased after them. Crusoe swam at incredible speed, but suddenly became trapped in a giant net that had been placed in the water to stop enemy ships. The creature struggled violently as the ropes tightened around him. When Hamilton's boat reached them, Lewis shouted for Angus to jump aboard. Before leaving, Angus leaned close to Crusoe and whispered softly, "You're my best friend, and I'll never forget you." He then leaped into the water and climbed safely into the boat. With one powerful surge, Crusoe broke free from the net, soared over it, and disappeared beneath the waves once more. Annie, Louis, and Hamilton cheered with relief as Crusoe finally escaped to safety.